Greetings and Happy New Year, and welcome to Take Action San Diego's 2024 kickoff meeting. I'm Wendy Galernter, and I'm part of this Swing Left Take Action San Diego meeting group. And since you're watching this, I'm going to guess that you are concerned about the rising tide of authoritarianism in the country. You're concerned about MAGA winning elections in the upcoming months, and you want to get involved. But sometimes there's so much overwhelming information out there on all of the things you can do, all the candidates you can donate to, all the tactics that you can use. It gets a bit overwhelming. The good news is there's a lot of data out there and a lot of expertise out there that's going to allow us to work as intelligently and effectively as possible in 2024. And I'm going to summarize in the next few minutes what some of those lessons we've learned in the past are and how we're going to effectively put them to use in 2024. And there's 6 major ways we're going to do that. We're going to use the most effective tactics possible. We're going to target the races that matter the most. We're going to involve our friends and multiply our impact that way. And we're going to use social media to spread the word on the achievements of the Biden and Harris administration and also to combat disinformation. We're going to time our tactics as effectively as possible. And we're going to, as much as possible, enjoy what we're doing, do it together whenever possible, and just do more than we have done before in order to maximize our impact and to be victorious. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the most effective voter outreach methods. And fortunately, in the last few years, researchers have spent a lot of effort in reviewing, conducting experiments on the impact of voter outreach methods and which methods have been the most effective in getting voters out to the polls. And this looks a little heavy, but I'll explain it, and I think it'll make sense to you. If we look at the 4 major tactics that volunteers and campaigns use to get out the vote: canvassing, phone calls, texts, and letters and postcards, we can look at them in terms of, let's just look at canvassing here. How many contacts does a volunteer have to make in order to get 1 new vote? And the data, and this is summarized over tens and more research studies, show that about 17 contacts need to be made to get 1 extra vote. And what that translates into in terms of the number of hours needed to get 1 vote is 2.8 hours for canvassers. The time frame that canvassing is most effective in is about 4 to 8 weeks before election. And canvassing, unlike any of the other methods we're going to talk about today, has some indirect benefits in that usually or frequently when a volunteer talks to someone in their home, it also has positive impact on the other people who live in the house. They're more likely to turn out to vote as well. If we sort of go down this list now and look at phone calls, you have to make a lot more contacts with voters in order to turn out 1 extra vote. The good thing is, though, you can make a lot more contacts in an hour than you can with canvassing, where it takes a long time to get from one door to the next. And that translates into about 2.3 hours, volunteer hours, for every extra vote that's needed. This tactic is also most effective in the month or 2 before the election. And the caveat on this method is fewer and fewer people pick up their telephones. And in the future, this may end up being even a more significant issue. For now, phone calls still have a significant impact on increasing voter outreach, and so it's definitely going to be part of our palette of tactics that we're going to use this year. Texts, which are a relatively newer form of voter outreach, huge number of contacts need to be made, to turn out 1 vote. But the good thing is you can make 100 or even more than 100 texts in an hour. And so that translates into 3.8 hours needed to get one extra vote. The time frame's the same, about 1 to 2 months before the election. And the caveat with texts is they're very expensive for campaigns to run. Finally, going to talk about letters and postcards. And again, this is a relatively new tactic. A few years ago, there was even very little data on the efficacy of this approach in turning out voters. But it turns out it is effective. It takes about 71 letters to turn out one extra vote. And that translates into 3.6 volunteer hours per new vote. The advantage of letters and postcards, as opposed to any of the other methods we're talking about, is that people can stockpile these throughout the year. And as a result, the millions and millions of letters and postcards that have been sent out can be accumulated over time. And the other interesting thing about letters and postcards is volunteers are the ones who fund it. Campaigns have very little involvement in financing this. Just talking about letters, I mean, you might be a little discouraged to say, wow, it takes that many hours to turn out one extra vote. How does that work? Well, it works because there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all across this country who are doing all of these things. And just as an example, our San Diego group in 2022 wrote almost 148,000 letters to voters in Virginia and Wisconsin. And given the data from this chart, that translates into almost 2,100 votes. And to give that a little context, Lauren Boebert, the Republican congresswoman we all love to hate, won her election by only 554 votes. Chris Mays, the Democratic Arizona Attorney General, an incredibly important role, especially in terms of voter protection, she won by only 280 votes. And here in California, David Valadao, a Republican congressman, won by just a little more than 3,000 votes. So a group like ours, or any group anywhere in the country, can definitely have an impact and can do enough to swing an entire race. That is the good news. And the other good news is that when all of the research studies that have been conducted are summarized and analyzed, they all produce statistically significant results, positive results in terms of turning out voters. So each method is effective. And when enough people do them, they can make all the difference in an election. Each method requires a vast number of volunteer hours. That's why we're talking today with you and hoping that you will get more involved. But the important thing is to focus on the tactics that you enjoy the most, the ones you're most likely to do, the ones you are most likely to spend your precious hours on in order to impact the 2024 elections. Because whatever you did last year or the year before or in 2020, we need to do more, excuse me, this year. It's going to make all of the difference this year. And what we want to do is not just all put our own time and effort into these things. We want to get more people to join us doing that. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But the other thing we have also learned in the last several years is that not every great Democratic candidate has a chance of winning their election, no matter how wonderful a person they may be. And that if we're going to be as smart as possible in the way we allocate our time and effort onto races, we need to be careful to pick the races where the candidates have a pretty good chance of actually winning. And to figure out what those races are, there's some great organizations. Swing Left is who we tend to rely on very heavily, but Vote Save America and others do similar targeting of elections using their expertise and their backgrounds in politics to do this. And frequently, the lists that these organizations come with overlap significantly. So for our group in San Diego, we're targeting congressional and Senate races, and of course, the presidential race, where there are House seats held now by Republicans that are close by, that are neighbors to us in either Arizona or other counties in California. And these are all people in districts that Biden won in 2020, but that have Republican representatives in Congress right now. They're all considered to be flippable, and we have at least 6 at this point that if we can flip these seats, we can easily win back the House in 2024. There are also 2 seats we need to hold, and that is Representative Mike Levin in San Diego/Orange County and Senator Mark Kelly in Arizona. And after the primaries are completed this spring, there will be more candidates that join this list. But for now, this is where we're going to focus our phoning, our texting, our letter writing, and down the line, our canvassing as well. I've talked about maximizing our impact by involving some of our friends. A lot of you may know people, have relatives, friends, or neighbors who are sympathetic to the idea that we need to reelect Biden and other progressive Democrats in 2024, but they may not like to come to meetings. They may not like to sit around with people they don't know. But they might be willing to come over to your house for a cup of tea and a cookie or a glass of wine and to spend an hour writing letters or text banking or phone banking. And so what we really want to, and this is a new effort on our part, although the idea of house parties is a very old and effective organizing tool, is to give you everything you need to do to organize one of these house parties, whether it's one person you invite over or 10. And so we will assist with any training, materials, names and addresses that you might need. We'll provide you with playlists so you can have great organizing music going on in the background. And if you want to select one campaign to work on or one issue to work on, we can help you decide which one you want to do. But we encourage everyone to do that. I know I have a few neighbors that I've been trying to think how to involve them. And this will be one of the first things I do this year is to get them over here for one of these house parties. Oops. Spreading the word on social media. And many of you may have read or listened to the wonderful Dan Pfeiffer, who was a senior advisor in the Obama administration. In the last few years, he's really taken it upon himself to make as clear as possible to all of us that the information war that's being fought on social media could be the determining factor in who wins and who loses in 2024. And unfortunately, the MAGA Republicans had a very effective method for flooding social media with disinformation starting in 2016 and going into right now. And that Democrats had sort of fallen behind on this. And thanks to Dan and other people like him, we're picking up steam. We're getting more and more people out there with information on the things that Biden and Harris have accomplished and fighting back against some of the terrible disinformation that's out there. To help people who might not be on social media right now, reluctant to be on social media, who are even uneasily on it right now. We're very lucky to have Deb Verla joining us for our next meeting on February 24th. She has trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on social media strategies, everything from how to get onto social media to where to get good content to post, to how to increase the audience that you're influencing with your posts. So I encourage all of you to join us on February 24th. We'll give you the link to that to get trained by Deb Verla on using social media for good. And we're very happy to be doing this meeting in conjunction with two partners that are just the best, Field Team 6 and Change Begins With Me, an Indivisible chapter here in San Diego. We're also going to be sending out weekly emails very soon, giving you 2 or 3 social media posts to promote every week. And this will hopefully make it easier for people to identify content and to get it out quickly, just in a few minutes, once a week. We also need to be smart about how we time some of these tactics. And again, the research studies have given us some good information about when and where to use some of these voter outreach tactics. So I'm going to show you a calendar here of 2024 that's starting right now with this month. And what we see is that voter education and outreach is something that's an ongoing effort. It's ongoing right now, and it's going to go all the way through Election Day, November 2024. And some of the things we can be doing all year long, starting now, are writing and stockpiling letters and postcards, posting on social media, getting involved in voter registration drives, especially those in swing districts where we have a good chance of flipping some races, writing letters to the editor, attending lectures and informational meetings where you can get amped up with more information so you can have discussions with friends and relatives about some of these issues. And we can be using this time also to promote voter guides that make it easier for people to vote and that prevent some of the hurdles that especially new voters may encounter. And Blue Voter Guide's one of the best out there, so we'll be promoting that all this year. The same goes for recruiting activists with house parties and some other methods we'll talk about later in the year. But this is something we can be doing all year long, starting now, starting with your first house party. Donations are a little trickier. The Biden-Harris campaign can use your money earlier rather than later, which means now or soon. But some of the candidates that we might want to be supporting haven't even won their primaries yet. So for some of the regional and local candidates that are going to require donations, that'll be happening mostly starting after primaries, April or even later in the year. And there are also grassroots organizations. Many of you may have read about these wonderful organizations in Arizona and Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota that are on the ground talking to voters month in, month out, and establishing the relationships so they become a trusted source of information for voters. These are all areas that, if you have the spare money, are worthy of your donation. And what we will be doing as a group a little bit later in the election year is working with Swing Left to create an impact fund that identifies candidates and grassroots organizations that are making the greatest difference. Candidates that have the best chance of winning in the House, in the Senate, and grassroots organizations that have a track record of being effective. And we're going to lump them all together in one fund. And if you donate to a fund like that, the money gets distributed evenly amongst all of those so that you don't have to understand every state and every congressional district in the country before you make a donation, that we can rely on organizations like Swing Left who have been out there who have been involved in political campaigns and who have had very good success in identifying those pivotal elections where our donations can really make a difference. So keep your eye out for emails from Take Action San Diego on donating to those impact funds. But also, if you're so inclined, please donate to Biden and Harris's campaign right now. Finally, starting in August is the real get out the vote emphasis. While we've been stockpiling letters all year, and will continue to do so until probably October when they all get mailed, get out the vote time is when also we start phoning voters, texting voters, and going door to door with voters. And we'll be providing information with all of those opportunities for you as we get further on in the year. Finally, we need to do more than we've done before, and to make it as joyful and interesting as possible, let's try to do as much as we can together. And what does that mean? Well, for sure, our monthly Zoom meetings, where we have educational speakers, where we write letters together and listen to great music together and chat, is a great way to do things together without having to get in your car. We are also teaming up with other progressive organizations to coordinate all of these activities that I've been talking about, whether it's indivisible chapters or Democratic clubs all around California, or Field Team 6 or Blue Voter Guide, or other swing left chapters. We're always looking for opportunities to synergize efforts with other organizations that are doing very similar work. We're also going to be hosting more in-person postcard and letter writing and texting events when we get a little bit closer to the election. It's just more fun when we can do these things together, although there's plenty of opportunity, and definitely encourage people to do these things on their own as well. I talked about the donation fund we'll be setting up later on in the year. Look out for emails about that. And probably more important than anything else is that the antidote to the worry and the despair and the concern that we sometimes feel about the way things are going in the country, the best antidote to that is to do something about it. And that's why we're here, is to give you as many options as possible so that you can find the thing that appeals to you the most, or the things that appeal to you the most, and will keep you feeling that you're doing what you can to make things better. That's pretty much everything we had to say today, but because it is Martin Luther King's birthday, I wanted to end with a quote from him about courage and how taking action and having the courage to take action is what helps us manage the fear we sometimes might feel about the way things are going. And I have to say that I take courage from all of you out there who are doing what you can to make this a more just, fair, and equitable society. I know with all of us doing this, we will succeed. So thank you. Check out the links at the bottom of this post, and hopefully we'll see you at a meeting or a letter writing event soon. Bye-bye.